Hey guys, and welcome to one more episode of Bitter Nation. For today's agenda, we have Louis. Wait, Louis, I need you to say your last name, please, because I don't know French.
So I'm Louis de Gouyon Matignon, really old French name, like maybe 1,000 years old French name.
Thank you for sharing. That's your last name? Yes. Co-founder of GAMA SPACE, a French aerospace company working on the future of deep space transportation thanks to solar sail. So welcome, and thank you so much for being here, for taking the time all the way from France.
Yes, thank you very much, Lisa. I'm at the moment just outside of Paris, in a city called Ivry-sur-Seine, and we are at the office there, and I'll show you around. I'll give you a little tour after. Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very glad to be part of it, and I'm very glad to be able to speak about the company, to speak about the project we have here at GAMA. So my name is Louis de Gouyon Matignon. I'm 31 years old. I live in France and I'm French. I live in Paris, but the office is just outside of Paris in Ivry-sur-Seine. And I am the CEO and co-founder of the company GAMA that we created now almost 2 years ago. We have a first launch where we're going to fly a 6U CubeSat in a few weeks. I will come back to it. But just to give you a little bit of my background, so basically I'm not an engineer. I started studying law as a student, and now I'm a PhD in law. I did my thesis on space law, and that's how I got into the space domain, let's say. I was interested in how, like satellite operations work from a legal point of view. And working on my thesis, I got interested to meet, with entrepreneurs and space agencies, even astronauts. And that's how I got, the virus of loving the space domain and space activities. When I finished my PhD, I started a small company where we're only two people called Space. And basically at Space, we offer a service of sending people objects on the ISS, the International Space Station, orbiting the Earth, and then bringing it back down on Earth. So basically, if you want to send, I don't know, a watch or, a ring or whatever, or your sunglasses to outer space and just tell your friends, hey, I have something that flew in outer space, we provide that kind of service. But to be truly honest with you, I was a little not disappointed, but I wanted to, to bring something a little stronger to the space activities. And I said to myself, hey, this is not really a prestigious activity. I wanted something that could actually help more, look out what's more deep in space and, really bring something that's important for humanity, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how I got to think about how I wanted to see the future of space transportation. And I was looking at everything that was on the internet, and I was listening to a lot of podcasts, especially NASA's podcast, Houston, we have a podcast, sorry. And I understood that today, all the activities were just outside of the Earth in low Earth orbits. So that's an altitude of roughly 450 to 1,000 kilometers altitude. And I said to myself, hey, if today we are inhabiting, low Earth orbits, what's the next step? How are we going to travel further in deep space? And that's how I started my, my research, and I started speaking with people, and I found out that there was this kind of propulsion that was really looked into in universities, in research groups, but no one had really tried to do anything with solar sailing. And that's how I got the interest of building a company around solar sailing. So I started meeting some specialists in France, because back in France, we have a NASA. It's called CNES, the Centre National d'Études Spatiales. And France is actually the third country to have launched its own satellite in the 60s. I think it was 1965, a satellite called Astérix. It's a French character, really well known in France. So we sent this satellite in 65, and since then we have had this space agency, CNES. And so I met those people in CNES 2 years ago, and I told them, hey, I'm Louis. I just finished my PhD thesis, and I have this company Toucan, but I want to go deeper into R&D, and I'm looking for a true project that will help space exploration. And so I started working on solar sailing, reading stuff, and meeting the right people. And then I had the privilege to meet my first co-founder, Thibaut Elzière. It was 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. And he told me, hey, I'm going to help you build that company. I'm going to give you a little bit of money to start the company. And then you're going to, create a team, et cetera, et cetera. And as of today, so we're October 2022, we're about 15 in the company. We're going to be 20 by the end of the year. We are launching our first solar sail. It will be in a few weeks from Florida. We will send a small CubeSat, a 6U CubeSat, that will deploy a solar sail of roughly 100 square meters. So the size of a flat inside the size of a shoebox. And then we will start working on our next mission that will fly in 2024. And this will be a bit more crazy. We will try some new specificities with the sail, such as changing trajectory and doing some other crazy maneuvers. And then we will be ready to have on the market a way to propel a spacecraft in deep space without using fuel. But of course, I will explain it later. But that's basically where we are.
I wanted to ask you, first things first, can you explain to our audience that it's filled with engineers? If you want to get technical, you can go ahead. What solar sailing is. I understand from my perspective that it's something that it kind of bounces the light or something.
That's right. That's exactly it. I mean, so today, so I'm not an engineer, so sorry if I make mistakes in explaining this, but I'm going to try to explain as the simplest way as possible. Today, when you have a satellite in space, usually you need propulsion to change, some parameters, orbital parameters to reorbit the satellite or to deorbit the satellite in order not to have space debris. And this costs fuel. And this fuel, it can run out. So when you're doing a mission, what actually kills the satellites, most of the time, it's because the satellite runs out of fuel. When you want to do a deep space mission, usually you actually use the whole launcher to go there. For example, if you want to go to Mars, you actually have to have the whole rocket dedicated to the interplanetary trajectory and to actually launch your object to Mars into the Martian orbit. What we realized is that with solar sailing, basically we enabled new kind of space missions, and that's what's crazy about it. And so that people can understand, unlike traditional means of propulsion, solar sailing is just deploying a very, very big and very, very thin membrane in space that will reflect light. And by reflecting light, when the photons will hit the surface, it will give momentum to the entire spaceship, and it will push the spaceship. It's a bit like if you have a boat on the seas and you have wind pushing the sail. Well, in space, wind is sun, wind is the lights. So that's how solar sails work. They have this massive, really huge surface deployed in space, and you cannot deploy it from the Earth. Of course, it has to be folded in the satellites, and I will show you the material and I will show you how it deploys. And for all parts at Gamma, we will have our first satellite flying in December. So we are really, really happy and excited about this perspective.
So if I understood that correctly, I need to ask you, if it doesn't need any kind of fuel, then it's more sustainable, right? So if it's sustainable, is it less expensive?
So actually, it's less expensive. Plus, you have a way less mass when you launch the satellite. So you actually gain, on the fuel needed by the rocket. So you're actually sending less mass to space. So this is a big economy. Plus, while you're in space and when you're deploying the solar sail, you don't need any fuel. So this enables missions never seen before. So that's the big advantage of solar sailing. The second big advantage of solar sailing, you don't need fuel, so you can do really long mission, is that it's theoretically the fastest object man will ever make. So I think the two advantages of solar sailing are those. The first one is you don't need any fuel. So this means longer missions plus less mass to send in space. So it's cheaper. And second thing, and that's, I believe, the biggest advantage, is that you can actually go really, really fast with a solar sail. You just have to rethink orbital mechanics. You just have to rethink how we travel in the solar system. We believe that thanks to solar sailing and those new paths in the solar system, we can actually fly small satellites, usually CubeSats, to Venus, to asteroids, to Mars, and even further at a really low price. And that's where we basically are positioning ourselves. This is the bet we took. We did not look at low Earth orbits immediately. We looked at what was beyond low Earth orbits, and we tried to imagine what the future of space transportation would be. And that's how, we created Gamma.
And actually, this relates to the next question that I was going to ask you, the investors part. It's a new company, and I know that you guys raised 2 million euros with the French Public Investment Bank. How was that experience for you? Like, especially like creating a French startup in space, and how was that? How was that like for you?
So it's not easy because two things. First of all, France is not maybe the best place to do, like space startups. I mean, it's good for the first rounds when you raise money, for example, the seed round or the pre-seed round and maybe, Series A. But as soon as you want to go beyond, it's really difficult because the money is not the same as in the US, for example, or elsewhere in the world. So this is a little difficult first. And second, I mean, it's difficult because when you're building a company, you don't really know how it works. So you try to learn. But what was great with the first co-founder I had with Thibaut Elzière is that he knew a lot inside the investment, like business, and he knew the right people to call, etc., etc. And then we had our third co-founder that came in the company, Andrew Notaire. And thanks to Andrew and Thibaut, we actually managed pretty well to raise some money. We had some help from the French Public Investment Bank, like mentioned. We had some help from the CNES, the Centre National d'Études Spatiales, so again, the French NASA. We had some investors from all over the world. We had some investors from the US, from England, from Germany, from France. It was a little difficult. At first, I was a little scared because I needed to pitch to some people. When you take your first yes, it's great, but you take a lot of no's before. So that's also a little difficult because when you take a first no, you want to rechange the whole pitch. And that's the bad idea we all have when we start the business, when we start a company. Do not change the vision. Do not change the beginning of the vision and what you believe truly, because you have to stay focused and laser focused on the objective. The objective was simple: how to revolutionize deep space transportation thanks to solar sailing. And we stayed on that. But at the beginning, when I took my first no's from investors, when we were doing the pre-seed rounds, I was really stressed. And I thought to myself, hey, I need to change this, or hey, I need to not mention this, etc., etc. And this was problematic. But speaking with Andrew, speaking with Thibaut, we understood that, we had to stay focused on the project. And we actually found some people. Solar sailing will not replace chemical and electric propulsion, but it will be next to electric and chemical propulsion for special missions. It's a bit like when you want to take a boat and you're on Earth. You can take a quick boat, you can take a plane, you can take a train, you can take your car, you can take your bus. In space, it will be the same. The type of propulsion will depend on the type of the mission. And if you look far ahead, you see that there will be some need for solar sailing because there will be some need for low-cost deep space transportation. That's the conclusion we are at the moment.
I wanted to ask you, like, what kind of customers do you have? Are they like based on or redirected on the government or related somehow?
So that's the big question, and that's what most of the investors ask us. So you're asking the right question. Thanks a lot. Most of space activities today are heavily supported by governments, states, and international organizations. That's the first thing you have to know. Second, to answer your question, of course, at the beginning of GAMA's life, the customers will be, like space agencies, institutions, etc., etc. At the moment, we're speaking with a few commercial partners that are ready to embark on the mission and to pay for some, like data on what will we be doing with our solar sail, with potential thing we could find outside, low Earth orbit, etc., etc. So we're having discussion with a few space agencies, a few commercial companies, but we're actually trying to find our first big customers. So that's the big plan at the moment. That's the big question mark at the moment. Who's going to be our first customer? Is it going to be, a space agency, maybe with less money than NASA or ESA, that wants to do a prestigious mission? This is the big question for us. Who's going to be a customer? We believe it's going to be either a space agency we are working with at the moment, or a public, institution and research institution. And in 5 years' time, maybe 10 years' time, when deep space will have expanded and when we will have a lot of more infrastructure, maybe private companies will show interest in deep space transportation. But at the moment, it will be publicly supported.
And I mean, we're running out of time. Would you mind sharing a little bit about the office and about where you're?
Yeah, of course. Okay, of course. So it's a little late here. We're in France, we're just outside of Paris. A little late. So most of the people left the company and to go back to their house. So let's begin with a few things. So this is where some part of the team works. Most of the team is upstairs, but this is where some of the team works. There you have this big machine is basically created to help wrap the material around the satellite, because it's really a difficult task. Here you have like two rolls of the material we're using for creating our solar sails. So it's a really thin and really reflective material. Here you have a lot of goodies because we're all space nerds. Let's say a few like calculations or whatever. I don't know what especially they're working on at the moment. This is some specs. What can I show you? So this is the like where we work. This is the tool house. I don't know how you say atelier in English. I forgot. But this is basically where we do some tests with our flat sats. So this is the flat sats. And, we're flying our first satellite in a few weeks from Florida. So we need to do, tests on the flat sat and, see if we are, well communicating with the sat and, programming the right stuff, etc., etc. That's the model of the satellite we're flying. I say 6 CubeSats with the 2 tuna cans and, like the solar panels and the antennas, etc., etc. So that's the satellite. That's the exact replica of the satellite we will fly soon. What else can I show? This is actually a replica of a solar sail. That's so that people can actually see what it looks like. So this is basically the solar sail. So in the middle, you have the payload. So scientific instruments, like a spectrometer, radiometer, or, just cameras to take pictures of asteroids, etc., etc. And around, you have the sail that is deployed. So in space, it looks like this. I'm going to try to show you how thin this is, but I don't know if you can see, but it's really, really thin.
It does look thin. It does look thin.
It's really, really thin. I mean, if I just put my finger, the engineers are going to shout, but, I just touch it and it really moves. I mean, it's so thin. It's so thin. Here is a, some, I don't know if you can see it from there. So that's the rest of the office, basically. It's pretty big. We need this space because we need to create tables where we can actually fold the solar sail. Because as I told you, the solar sail is basically a big surface that is deployed in space. And for this, we need really big tables to assemble the sail. This is what's inside the flat sat you saw just earlier on. So this is a system where we can extrude the satellite, the sail. So this pops out and then the sail is wrapped around and it can then deploy in space. And this is, once it's inside the satellite, it basically looks like this, basically. And we're actually thinking of putting a clean room inside the office so that we can integrate the sail directly in our office. Because for the first mission, Gamma Alpha, it will fly in December. It will fly on Falcon 9 on a SpaceX mission called Transporter 6. The sail was assembled inside CNES's facilities in the south of France, in a place in a town called Toulouse. So for the first mission, we were actually in Toulouse, in the Centre Spatial Toulousain of CNES, and we assembled the sail there. There are a few pictures on the internet. But for our next mission, we would like to actually assemble right here outside of Paris.
And last but not least, do you have any advice for future entrepreneurs or people starting on the space industry?
Yes. First of all, do not change your pitch when you're speaking with investors. I mean, you can pivot, but try to stay focused on the initial vision. And second, please, try not to do a copycat of something that already exists. I mean, you can if you want, but I think what's more challenging for your life is to actually imagine what the future of space activities will be and try to position yourself with this in mind.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Luis, for being here and sharing your experiences. Do you have any social media handles? Where can people find you? Where can people follow you or Gamma?
Yeah, thank you very much. So people can follow us on the website gamaspace.com or on the LinkedIn Gamma Space on LinkedIn, or on the Twitter Gamma Space again. And I'm Luis de Gouyon Matignon. So if people have not so much difficulties to type my name, you can follow us on LinkedIn again, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you want. We're present on all platforms apart from TikTok. We're not on TikTok yet, but who knows?
Hopefully soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Elisa.
Thank you. And remember, guys, that you can also find more information, interesting articles, interesting interviews directly on our website, controlhub.com/builder-nation. We would love to hear from you. And once again, Louis, thank you for being here and for sharing your experiences. Hopefully, we'll get to connect soon and we'll see that solar sailing launch in space.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you very much.